understand giving you a name.
Creed!
Now, I'm open-minded, but that seems a bit over the top.
Yeah, I'm not. He's a complete fraud, Derek and Cora. I'm not having it. I'm just not. I'm not having that. That is ridiculous.
That scared me. For me, that's a non-reality, and I think the reality is a far more vibrant and a beautiful thing, and something that people shouldn't fear.
This time, it's a review of the medium Tony Stockwell.
It's my desire. It's my desire. It's my desire. Don't you wanna know how we keep starting fires? It's my desire. It's my desire. It's my desire.
Tony Stockwell, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Much of the same, so please, if you think you know the information, do answer up. If you're a bit scared, don't worry, I won't bite you. And if I do, I think you might enjoy it. I don't know. But,
On Tuesday, the 15th of October, I got a chance to see Tony Stockwell's work in person. Unedited stage performance. I couldn't record any of the performance because it would be something I could be taken to court over. But I can give my honest review and what I recognised as being cold reading being used by this individual. It was over at the Western Playhouse in Weston-super-Mare, and I was sitting quite close to the front. I went along to the show as a sceptic but still open-minded. If evidence was brought forward, I would accept it to a degree, and on further examination I would consider it as being evidential in some way, shape or form, if that information could be provided. It was not. There was no solid evidence within that show. There are many people there, most of whom were people who'd gone to similar shows before, a great many believers, people from local spiritualist churches, and several of them got messages, presumably because they were putting their hand up to certain generalisations because they thought they could find a connection. There were also several other people there who appeared to be emotionally distressed. While hearing conversations before the show between those individuals and their friends, I worked out at least a couple of them were probably grieving. They had lost relatives and they came to a show to try and regain a connection or have some kind of emotional closure on their grief. Tony Stockwell's readings were really quite poor. He would give out a few bits of general information, not knowing where he's going to in the audience, and people would find meaning within these generalisations. So out of an audience of hundreds, some people would accept it. And out of those acceptances, people would change things where it didn't fit fully. So if they could accept a key characteristic of the initial part of the reading, but they could not accept the other information, but they wanted to accept the message because they're, well, grieving, or they need comfort, or they need a boost, they would change some of the things, and the medium very often would accept the change. One particular reading sticks in my mind more so than the rest. It was one where he threw out the information, as ever not knowing where he's going, just simply giving it out to the audience and seeing who takes it. The idea of a young man who would have died at the age of 27, the name of Mark, and he would have died in a car accident. So this is fairly general if you think about how many people have been in car accidents, how many people have died in car accidents. There's been quite a few, and the name Mark, fairly common. The age 27, more specific, so sounds good. Out of the audience of hundreds of people, 3 women put their hand up. None of them could accept the age 27. They could, however, accept the age 21, and I think with one of them, the age 20. None of them could accept the name Mark as being directly relating to this, other than a friend of the person they knew or someone they knew called Mark. However, one of them could accept the name Martin, which does sound a little bit like Mark, and he was known as Mart. So the medium accepted that change. In fact, there were several changes, and he threw out a question. He said, "Are you mother?" to one of the women, the woman who claimed that it was Martin with her. She clearly had an emotional face. She was still probably grieving, and rather than questioning the others and seeing if it truly worked with them to make sure, he decided to go with the woman who was most emotional. You could hear the emotion in the voice, you could see the emotion because they film it, so they put it on a monitor, and you could see the emotion in her face. And he basically went to her. He said, "Are you mother?" She went, "Yes," and so he did a reading for her, and he threw out some very general information. Things like it wasn't truly his fault. He doesn't want people to blame themselves, etc, etc, etc. There was no solid information, no clear information, other than what the woman, who I think was probably grieving, basically could find herself by finding where something fits, by making stuff fit because you believe that it's true, and a person who is grieving is likely to make something fit even if it is not true, because they're looking for comfort. And that's precisely what this woman was doing. She changed it. She was looking for hope, looking for comfort, still suffering from sadness, from loss. And people like Tony Stockwell prey upon those sorts of individuals. Basically, the whole of the show was much the same. Giving out general information, allowing stuff to fit because it's so general, or making stuff fit. Occasional bits where it's more specific. Often when he's trying to be more specific, getting it wrong. The hits aren't anything monumental. And there was only one real reading which seemed to be fairly impressive, but even then you could tell he was using generalisation. He was making it fit, so was the person being read. It was to do with a murder, and someone in the room could take it. And I've seen mediums use this technique before, when no one puts their hand up and says, "I think that's with me." They say they have to send them onto the light so they can go over to the afterlife. But the fact is, the readings he did were all very poor. He also did some readings of photos, and he was basically reading cold there too. If the show I saw is representative of spiritualism, and supposedly very well educated, very well organised, very good spiritualism, then I'd have to say that spiritualism is nothing but the art of people bullshitting each other and people bullshitting themselves. That might sound harsh, but I would say, looking at the evidence, looking at mediums over the years, and doing a examination of the work of Tony Stockwell and others in the past, there is no reason to assume that these things are real. They could be real in some way, shape or form, somewhere, somehow, but that's not enough. Until there is proof, until there is evidence, there is no reason to assume anything as being automatically true.